Hey y'all, so tonight I'm drinking the Shroud Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon, part of my Wall Street Journal Wine Club wine, and it is a medium-bodied red, absolutely delicious, absolutely recommend. All right, so now get cozy, get your warm blankets on, because we are going to kick start this episode of Final Affairs with a very prolific figure. All right, so imagine this. A guy who was the absolute king of the football field. He's breaking records left and right. And then suddenly, his life takes this nosedive into one of the most talked about scandals ever. And when I say ever, I mean ever, because I don't think I've heard any scandals like this since then or before then. Unless maybe we're talking about, Shakespearean scandals, but we're talking real life right now. All right, he was the face everyone knew, not just for his athletic skills, but also for his charm on screen and off screen as well. But then, out of nowhere, he's at the center of, I don't know, what's a delicate way to say this? Yeah, a murder trial. A murder trial that had everyone glued to their TVs. It sparked debates that still linger today. Guilty, not guilty. We'll never know, honestly. And just about when you think that the drama is completely over, he gets caught up in a bizarre robbery in Vegas. I don't even think Hollywood could come up with a script this, I don't even know what word to say, diabolical, interesting. It's just intriguing, right? I'm not sure if you know who I'm talking about just yet, so I'll continue to give you a few tips. All right, so it's like his life was a real life soap opera. General Hospital had nothing on him, though. It was full of twists and turns that no one saw coming. And by now, you should probably have an idea who I'm talking about. Yeah, we're talking about O.J. Simpson, the man whose story is a wild ride from glory to infamy. All right, so we're going to dive into all things O.J. Simpson this evening, but our primary focus, as always, will be about estate planning. So we'll get there, though. I think the story that gets there is a bit interesting, so let's talk about all of it. We'll start with the man himself. O.J. Simpson was born in 1947 in San Francisco. He earned the nickname The Juice. Y'all can probably guess why. I think we probably all know this because, his name is O.J. Orange Juice. Yeah, it's really that simple. There's not, some big story behind it. Orange juice, basically. But the nickname stuck, and it became as iconic as the man himself. All right, I'm going to take a sip because this is really good wine. Join me. In fact, how about every time I say OJ, we all take a sip? Because we're going to say his name quite a few times during this entire episode. All right, back to the story. Here's a little backstory, right? Simpson didn't have the smoothest start in life. I personally didn't know this until I started to look into him and his background and his career. So this may be new news for some of you, but as a kid, he suffered from rickets. It's a condition that weakened his bones and it kind of made his legs bow outwards. Really surprising to know this because when you look at him as a football player, you would never guess. But think about how rough that must have been for him as a kid, who would later become one of the fastest men on the football field. So it's just crazy how things worked out for him. But to fix this rickets and his bowed leg, he had to wear leg braces until he was 5 years old. It kind of reminds me of, what was the name of that movie? Do you know what movie? Forrest Gump. In Forrest Gump, right? So yes, my fiance is on the side listening. But it reminds me of Forrest Gump where he had to wear those leg braces. So OJ, similar to that, if you can picture the scene, he's running around with his leg braces. Unfortunately for this 5-year-old kid, probably looked super cute, but he was a real life Forrest Gump. Except instead of running through cornfields, Simpson would later run circles around NFL defenders. He went big time. There is a lot that happened, obviously, between the 5-year-old with leg braces and him becoming this world-renowned football player, fastest player on the field. But there are other things that happened that sort of made his childhood and just growing up challenging. For one, in addition to his condition, his parents also separated when he was just 5. So his mom had to raise him and his 3 siblings. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. And he was raised in Potrero Hill neighborhood of San Francisco, I believe it was. But yeah, so challenging upbringings for sure. But let me tell you, this was no Beverly Hills. So he definitely went through quite a bit and he overcame it. So it is sort of a, happy story of someone who overcomes challenging beginnings, right? At least initially it is. But yeah, the area he grew up in, so rough. He had his fair share of challenges, and young OJ had his run-ins with trouble as well. So another part of his challenging upbringing, he joined a gang called the Persian Warriors. I had no idea about this. I do not know who the Persian Warriors are. I don't think I've ever heard about this gang, so it must be something really down low. Yes, the name sounds like something out of an action movie. No idea. But he spent some time in juvenile detention as well because of his gang affiliations and the kinds of trouble that he would get into and just, where he lived, the conditions he was in as a youth. He spent time at the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center, which is a juvenile detention center. That was around the early 60s, so like 1962-ish, he was there. But he overcame that, like I've already alluded to. Football was his way out of this. Despite his early brushes with trouble, football became, his savior, I guess I would say. It was his saving grace. I don't know a better way to describe it because it definitely opened up a ton of opportunities for him. It gave him purpose. It gave him focus. It gave him an escape route from the challenges of the environment that he was growing up in. And so he was at Galileo High School when his talents really became evident to those who were around him. He started to shine, which was, really great for him. The coaches were taking notice and people were taking notice. And we have all seen that beautiful smile on that man. So I'm sure the ladies were taking notice as well. Everybody basically was taking notice of this man who no longer had the braces on his leg, a football player, star athlete. And so he did really well. And you know who else took notice? College scouts. So that's when it really gets interesting. When college scouts start looking at you, you know that your star is rising. Ultimately, he ended up at the City College of San Francisco before he transferred to USC. USC is basically the Harvard of football, as far as I understand. I'm no football enthusiast. I watch football, obviously, from time to time. But it is like Harvard of college football, as far as I know. And his star really began to rise at that point. He became their golden boy almost immediately. And the reason he became their golden boy is actually quite ironic for a kid who had rickets and had to wear braces. He was fast, like blink and you miss him fast. So in 1968, he won the Heisman Trophy, the highest honor in college football. So that's a testament to just how phenomenal of an athlete OJ was. He was really doing big things and really accomplishing quite a bit. It was a big deal then, and it's still a big deal now. I don't know, who else has won a Heisman Trophy that we can maybe compare to?
Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush? Okay, so I think I know that name, Reggie Bush. Yeah, so compare it to that, for today, Reggie Bush. That's how amazing. He probably for his time was even more amazing than Reggie Bush. I don't know. Hopefully I'm not saying anything slanderous right now. But it was a big deal. His performance was so electric that the Buffalo Bills made him the first overall pick in 1969 NFL draft. I mean, his resume as an athlete is truly amazing. Like, Honestly, he was, if all we knew about OJ was his athletic resume, we would be in awe. If we didn't know the other stuff that kind of riddled the rest of his life, yeah, but we'll get there. Let's just stay in the happy times for now. Once he hit the NFL, he was unstoppable. He was playing for the Buffalo Bills. He became the first player to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season in 1973. Basically, he set a record that stood for years. I don't know exactly what year or who defeated that record, but this man was record breaking or record setting, right? Yeah, so amazing athlete. I think I'm just going to keep saying that. So they didn't just call him the Juice anymore because orange juice. Now they called him a Juice because he was a powerhouse to be reckoned with. So the name kind of took a different connotation as his star rose and as he just became the phenomenal athlete that he was. He turned the Bills into a team worth watching, and fans couldn't get enough of him. Like, he was absolutely loved and adored. But here's the kicker, and I hate to have a downer, so I'm just going to take a sip of my wine. And I think I've been missing a few of the OJ mentions with the sip, so we'll take a sip right here. His success, right? It wasn't just about statistics. He had a charm, and I think this charm is kind of what led him into a bit of trouble, because he kind of becomes this golden boy who's untouchable, who people maybe cater to, and he sort of feels like, he sort of starts to feel like, you can't really get at him. So this charm is endearing. But yeah, I think that charisma, that it factor that made him a star off the field too, was kind of the beginning of his demise. He had Hollywood dreams, and as his star rose in football and on the football field, his magneticism also started to attract a lot of attention from Hollywood. And so here's just OJ, football player from a small town, difficult, challenging beginnings, now just meeting with a lot of fame, a lot of attention, a lot of love, a lot of adoration. And so why wouldn't he, take it all in and absorb it? He had the charm, he had the looks, he had the athletic ability that made him a natural fit for the screen. So of course he took on Hollywood. And so after he retired from the NFL, he wasted absolutely no time in transitioning into the big screen, I guess you would say. He transitioned into the world of entertainment. His most famous role, if I remember correctly, was he was a detective. I think it was Detective Norberg in the Naked Gun series. Yeah. OJ was the it man right then, right? He was the it man right there. And he was bubbling. He was just excited. He was eager. He was actually not a bad actor either. So the irony was that he was just as good on screen, on Hollywood screens, as he was on the football field. He was kind of like what do they call them? Like a trifecta. Like he was good at everything he put his hands to. Yep. But the irony wasn't lost on anyone. Years later, his great acting skills and his charm all comes to a head in the future. His Hollywood presence wasn't limited to comedy, though. He appeared in movies and commercials. Remember those Hertz ads where I think he's like sprinting through the airports? Yeah, he was basically the face of any and everything. He was the face of speed and reliability, which looking back now, it kind of feels almost like a twisted joke in a way, given what was to come with his life. I don't know. It's a little bit of foreshadowing. So it's funny that I mentioned Shakespeare to begin with, because his life and everything that he experiences is a little bit of foreshadowing, right? But yeah, Hollywood absolutely loved OJ. but it is not as much, not as much. And I think we're all probably really clear on this. Not as much as OJ loved being the center of attention. OJ loved OJ. I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but OJ loved OJ. He was a guy who could command a room with a smile, that charm that he had, whether it was on a movie set or whether it was at a fancy dinner party in Beverly Hills. He was just the guy. He just drew in a ton of attention. Like, people wanted to be around OJ. He was like the sun, and we were just all orbiting around him. He was the center of attention. I don't know how else to make this clear. He was the center, right? But here's the thing about fame. It's a double-edged sword. When you're up, when you're on top of everything, everyone loves you. And when you're down, when you fall, I think we all know how that ends. The world watches with popcorn in hand. It's really unfortunate. I'm guilty of it. Y'all are probably guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. It's not like we want these superstars or, famous people to fail. There's just something interesting, I guess, and intriguing about celebrities and high profile people and their lives being ordinary, I guess, or being, the potential for them to have challenges, I guess. I wouldn't say to fail, because I don't think the average person fails either. But so just the potential for them to have challenges. And it's so unfortunate. But yes, when you fall, the world watches with popcorn in hand. And so here is when we start to go down a dark path with OJ. OJ married Nicole Brown in 1985, which happens to be the year I was born. But we're not going to tell anybody that. And from the outside looking in, they seemed like the perfect couple. Nicole was beautiful, and OJ, the one time I remember, was charismatic. And together they were the picture of success, like just a power couple. They were a beautiful couple. And that's sometimes the problem, right? I think even in today's day and age with a lot of social media couples, we see this a lot. We see the front picture, but we never see the behind the scenes. Behind closed doors for OJ and Nicole, their relationship was anything but perfect. There were, unfortunately, allegations of DA. I think we know what that is, domestic, And Nicole reportedly confided in friends about OJ's controlling and jealous behavior. Given what we're talking about from this point on, I'm going to be light on the wine so that we can actually concentrate, because this is actually really challenging and very unfortunate, the turn of events that his life took. Now, this is where it gets super heavy. Friends and family later revealed that Nicole had written journals documenting years of abuse. These journals became crucial during the trial, and it painted a picture of a man who wasn't smiling, didn't have that charming smile. He wasn't that charming figure. He wasn't that adored figure. He wasn't that person that we had all come to see on screen and love. That's not the picture that her journals painted. Despite their rocky marriage, they had 2 children in the midst of all of this. Their children named Sydney and Justin. And they were, as you can imagine, oftentimes caught in the crossfire of OJ and Nicole's very volatile relationship. Yeah, that just breaks my heart when children are involved in that kind of mess. As an attorney, one of the first cases that I undertook was a family law matter. And I just remember leaving thinking to myself, neither parent deserves those children, because they were both just very selfish in their thinking. It was about them more than it was about the children. So that just breaks my heart when children are involved. And even after Nicole and OJ's divorce in 1992, they still remained entangled. Like, it was like they couldn't just leave each other alone. It was partly because of their kids, but it was also partly because their relationship had always been complicated. I don't know what better word to say. It's always been complicated, to say the least. And so they were going to probably remain entangled for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, now comes the murders and the trial of the century. All right, so now we're at June 12th, 1994. It was nighttime, and it was the night that changed everything. Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend, Ron Goldman, were found brutally murdered outside Nicole's Brentwood home. Yeah, this was 2 years after their divorce. The crime scene was gruesome, and all signs pointed to one suspect, O.J. Simpson. Open closed case, right? You would think, but it wasn't. Then, after all of that, came the Bronco chase, which we all probably saw on television. I don't know how young y'all are, but I definitely saw that on television. Not to age myself. But let's talk about this for a second, because it was unlike anything anyone had seen before. A slow speed car chase broadcast live on national TV. Like, can you even imagine? Like, this wasn't a high-speed chase like we see on Instagram and social media, and they're weaving through streets and neighborhoods and highways and cars. No, it was not. It was a slow-speed chase. People were glued. We were all glued to our TV screens like it was the Super Bowl or something. Everyone was watching. OJ riding in the back of a white Ford Bronco with a gun, driven by his friend, his name is Al Cowlings. It created one of the most surreal moments in television history. Like, literally. I don't even know how to describe that. I cannot think of anything that has happened since that would mirror what we all witnessed on that day with this Bronco chase. Yeah, completely jarring. So that happened. So that, evidence of guilt, maybe not. You can't really weigh someone's past actions to determine that they are guilty without actual evidence. But yeah, I don't know. If someone getting into a chase with a gun and, running off after their ex-spouse has been found gruesomely killed, murdered, I don't know. But, okay, now it's the trial time, right? And it is a media circus. It is everything. It had everything you can think of. Celebrity lawyers, dramatic courtroom moments, and the infamous glove. So you all know the line, but let me see if my fiance remembers the line. What's the line?
If it doesn't fit, you must have quit.
All right, you're close. Oh, actually, you're completely right. If it doesn't fit, you must. Did you look that up? Yeah. I was gonna ask you that. Yeah, that is Johnny Cochran, right? OJ's defense attorney. That's what he said. He delivered those words with such flair that they've been etched into pop culture forever at this point. We will all, I think the way that I remembered it before I looked up the exact phrase was, if it don't fit, you must have quit. Like, that's how I remember it in my mind. Like, it's a rhyme, right? If it don't fit, you must have quit. But that's not exactly how he said it. But yeah, it is etched in our pop culture minds forever. And let's not forget the racial tension that bubbled under the surface of this trial, with many seeing OJ's acquittal as a victory against a biased justice system. OJ, of course, is Black. Nicole, of course, was white. And there was a lot of racial undertones. I mean, I don't know a better way to say it, that surrounded the trial. The verdict was not guilty. But the court of public opinion didn't agree. I mean, maybe some did, right? We were divided, to say the least. Some people cheered and some people said, yes, power to the people. And some others were outraged. I'm not going to share where I stand on that. But every one of us have had an opinion on OJ. As a person, OJ during the trial, and OJ as connected to Nicole Brown. We all have our opinions. After the trial, OJ tried to rebuild his life. He published a book. It was titled, If I Did It, a hypothetical account of how he would have committed the murders. I'm just going to take a sip because at this point, I don't know what else to say, but the audacity. Even if you think he wasn't guilty, but Nicole has a family. They had children. It's just, yeah, you heard that right. He named the book If I Did It. And it was about what he would have done if he had committed. No words. As you can imagine, the book sparked outrage, and Nicole's family eventually gained control of the publishing rights, adding a bold statement to it. Confessions of the Killer. I kid you not. They added a bold statement to it after they gained control of the publishing. It was basically the subtitle on the cover. It said Confessions of the Killer. Insane. But even despite all of that, for better or for worse, OJ still had his fans. Despite being found liable for the murders in a 1997 civil trial in order to pay $33.5 million to the victims' families, OJ continued to live relatively comfortably. So I can't even imagine. So if the order was for 33 million, we're just going to round to 33 million. What was he worth at that time? I need to look that up. I need to know, babe, if you can look that up, that would be great. Like, what was he worth in 1997? Because he was just continuing to live his life. He was just comfortable. I don't know how that managed to happen. But what I do know is that he had his NFL pension. I don't know if NFL does pensions anymore, but he did have his NFL pension that was absolutely untouchable under federal law. And that allowed him to maintain a certain lifestyle, right? That while it wasn't as lavish as he had before, it was far from struggling. So he was still doing perfectly fine. And I want to say it was mostly because of the NFL pension, but I don't know, he probably had other assets over and above what he was responsible for, that $33 million claim. But go ahead. He was worth $10 million?
Yeah, in 94.
Oh, wow. So, okay, so maybe it was just the NFL pension then. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so he couldn't have even paid off the civil claim. Anyways, if you thought the drama ended there, think again. We're now going to fast forward to 2007. So this is what, like 10 years later? The Vegas incident. In 2007, OJ was arrested in Las Vegas after attempting to retrieve sports memorabilia he claimed was stolen from him. But this wasn't a polite, hey y'all, can you please give me my stuff back kind of situation. No. This was an armed robbery. Yeah. It is so crazy. It is laughable. Like, it's like we're watching a movie, but it is real life. There were guns involved. He literally went to demand his memorabilia with weapons. It was an armed robbery. People were threatened. I don't know where on earth he thought this was a good idea. And OJ, ever the center of attention, he found himself back in court. So in 2008, he was convicted of this armed robbery. And it also, by the way, included kidnapping. And he was sentenced to 33 years in prison. The irony here, he was eligible for parole after 9 years. And that was the same length of time that he had been a professional football player. So his star rose in like a short period of time, but his menace went on for so much longer. Is this a coincidence? I don't know. You decide. I don't know. Karma. I don't know how this. I don't know. It's just numbers, right? 9 years he played. Parole was up in 9 years. I don't know. I don't think the system was rigged or anything like that. That is an interesting coincidence. But anyways, after being released from prison in 2017, OJ, time for another sip. He made a very surprising move. Guess what it was? What was his next move in 2017 after he was released from prison?
I don't know. What was it?
He joined Twitter. I don't know why I find that funny. Let me tell you, his tweets were something else. Okay, his first post, a video where he said, I've got a little getting even to do. Like, this man, was he dumb? Was he smart? I don't even know. I've got a little getting even to do. Sir, what? Like, the internet exploded, as you'd imagine, because are you confessing to something else? Like, are you about to commit another crime? What is happening? Like, are you not tired of just being a criminal? Like, don't you get tired? I mean, how old was he in 2017? At this point, he was older. Like, he was at least in his 50s. Like, are you not tired, sir? Like, this is your first tweet on Twitter? X now, I guess. But, yeah. His account gained over 250,000 followers because people love to witness a crash, I guess. I don't know. Some were there out of just a morbid curiosity. Others, well, who knows? His posts range from sports commentary to, surprisingly, life advice. Like, I wonder who's actually taking life advice from OJ. Like, what would, I don't even know. Did you find out how old he was?
70.
He was 70 in 2017 and I'm done. I'm done. The audacity of this man knows literally no bounds. Okay, anyways, let's just move on. He passed away this year, as we all probably know, in April, at the age of 76 due to prostate cancer. You think that would be the end of the OJ saga, but no, it is not. If you know anything about OJ, you know the drama does not stop, even after his death. So his passing sparked a legal frenzy over his estate, dragging his family, his past controversies, all of them. A lot of them, a lot more than an average person's controversies, and a whole lot of money into the spotlight. So I'm actually quite curious when you say in 2014 he only had a net worth of 10 million, because that is important to the next part we're going to discuss, which is the estate, why we're here. Partially why we're here. We're also here for the juice and the gist. All right, so the estate of OJ has become a battleground, with the families of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman reigniting their pursuit of the $33.5 million wrongful death judgments from 1997, if I'm correct. Oh, and real quick correction. So I think I said Nicole's family got the publishing rights to his book. It was actually Ron Goldman's family that got the publishing rights to his book, not Nicole. So let me correct that point really quick before the internet warriors start typing and correcting me. But for their families, this wasn't just about money. So the family that is left behind of Nicole and Ron, how can it be about money at this point? It's about justice. He literally never paid that amount. So he died without actually paying that amount, the civil claim. And there was no accountability. And so for them at this point, it's really just about closing a chapter that had remained painfully, I'm sure, open for decades at this point. This has gone on for far too long. But of course, ever the drama king, those around him are also part of the drama. OJ's lawyer and the executor of his estate, Malcolm Laverne, he had other plans. He made it clear that he was not going to let the Goldmans or the Browns touch a dime of OJ's estate. Houseway. His now infamous declaration, he hoped they'd get zero, nothing. Like, these are quotes from him. Zero, nothing. The audacity that surrounds OJ and the people around him is just jarring to me. And with that declaration, the stage was set for one of the most contentious estate battles in recent memory. And I think this will be a groundbreaking case once it's actually resolved. It's not yet resolved. So as of now, like, it's still ongoing. It's not yet resolved. And it's going to potentially change a lot about the probate process, and we'll get there. Let's talk about the crown jewel of Simpson's financial stability, the NFL pension. Remember I said the NFL pension under federal law, completely untouchable? Yeah. So let me dive into that a little bit more. So under federal law, pensions are protected from creditors. Yeah. So you know that thing where people try to put their estate into a trust to protect it from creditors? Yeah, the pension is a better option if you have a pension. That really doesn't exist for a lot of employees today. But even in cases of civil judgments like the one against Simpson, the pension is protected from creditors. This loophole, therefore, has allowed OJ, or his estate, I guess, to kind of hide that away. And it also, during his lifetime, allowed him to live that comfortable life for years after his fall from grace. Yeah, so that's how he was living. I don't know if there's any way we can find out the value of that pension. Do you mind looking that up for me? I don't know. But the Goldman and the Brown families, they knew they couldn't touch the pension directly, which meant that they had to focus on other parts of Simpson's estate. But here's the thing. Pensions are often the backbone of an estate. So when you can't access the core income, collecting what's owed becomes exponentially harder. And in this case, that was it for OJ's estate as well. The pension was really the backbone of his estate. But here's where we get into some interesting stuff. You found out.
$5 million.
It's not a lot. It's really not a lot. Okay, so that's crazy to me. His net worth really was not that much, but I can see living comfortably on a $5 million pension, I guess. I don't know.
He was going to receive between $125,000 or $300,000 annually.
Okay, that's a salary. That's a salary right there. That's not bad. Okay, 6-figure man. All right. All right. But let's talk fraudulent transfer allegations, which was what the Brown and the Goldman family were kind of after. They were wondering, where did the money go, right? So he had to have had money. I think there's money we don't know about. In the years before his death, OJ reportedly transferred significant assets to his children. That's probably why his assets aren't showing up. And it raised a lot of eyebrows because, yeah, of course you can transfer assets to your children, but you can't do it to avoid creditors. Was this the act of a loving father securing his legacy for his kids? I don't know. Or a calculated attempt to shield his wealth from creditors? Who knows? What do you think? Do you have an opinion? Do you want to share an opinion? No? Okay, me either. The Goldman's legal team firmly believed, as I'm sure the average reasonable, prudent person would believe as well, that legal standard, a prudent person, we would believe that the latter was the case. And yeah, it was a fraudulent transfer. And so the Goldman's legal team wasted no time accusing Simpson of engaging in fraudulent transfers, which if it was a fraudulent transfer, then you know what that means. So let's explain what that is exactly, because many of you, the words make sense, fraudulent transfer, but let's explain legally what that means. So fraudulent transfers occur when someone moves assets to another party, like a family member, for example, specifically, though, to keep those assets out of the hands of creditors. If this is proven, the transfers can be undone, meaning the transfers can be clawed back, basically. So it basically acts like the transfers were never made and the assets are in the original party's names. So it would claw back the transfers into the estates for redistribution. The Goldmans are now scrutinizing these transactions. They're arguing that Simpson's children should not benefit from wealth that should have been paid out based on we're talking about the civil case that was won in 1997. So they're arguing that his children should not benefit from wealth that should have been used to satisfy that judgment, essentially. I think that's reasonable. I think that's a reasonable call out. If that's what happened here, if it is found to have been a fraudulent transfer, I think that's a reasonable call out. So what exactly is on the table in this estate battle? While the NFL pension we talked about is untouchable, so that is off the table, but we found out it's $5 million value, so it's not even a lot. It's not enough to satisfy that $33 million judgment. His estate, Simpson's estate, includes other valuable assets, and we are going to run down what those things are that are part of his estate plan. First, as you can imagine, real estate. He reportedly owned properties through many different ways. So some had already been sold off, admittedly, during his lifetime, but he owned properties. The remaining properties that were left in his name are under scrutiny right now for their value and ownership transfer. So it's a little murky there, but he definitely owns several properties that have value and are potentially on the table to be included as part of his estate and potentially fulfill the judgment. And then there are the memorabilia and the royalties. I talk about royalties quite a bit on my TikTok. So if you have questions about royalties, go to TikTok and you can check those out. Royalties are so important for good people. I don't know that bad people should get royalties. Bad people, no royalties, but he had royalties. Simpson's memorabilia, yes, including the infamous sports items involved in his Vegas robbery case, and any residual royalties from his time in the movies and the entertainment world, acting as a detective in all of his comedy stints. All of those are potential targets for being part of his estate. And then he also had, personal belongings, of course, which are part of our estate. Everything from cars to jewelry, those could technically be liquidated to satisfy the judgment. In case you don't know what that word liquidated means, it means essentially turned liquid. Like a monetary value is determined, it's sold off, auctioned off, whatever, and you take the monetary value and it's money that you can add as value to his estate, essentially. I hope I explained that well for y'all. But there's more to it. There's more to it, of course, because we're talking about O.J. Simpson. The exact value of his estate is so murky. A lot of his wealth may have been dissipated. Yes, absolutely. But also, we know that some were probably hidden and, of course, transferred. So it's leaving a puzzle for the Goldman's attorneys to solve, like what exactly is part of his estate. Like it's quite a quandary, right? And so that's where you cue the lawyers. Like I wish I had a ding, like a Law and Order, cue the lawyer. Malcolm Laverne, we all remember that's Simpson's attorney, and he's also the executor of Simpson's estate. He is no stranger to controversy. As executor, he is responsible, of course, for managing the estate, settling debts, distributing assets to the beneficiaries, all the things that as executors do. But Laverne has taken an aggressive stance. He's vowed to block any attempts, zero, nothing. He has blocked any attempts by the Goldmans to collect what they are owed. I mean, that on one hand is despicable behavior, but on the other hand, I guess if I had a lawyer and an executor, I would want them to go that hard for me too. So yeah, I would want my executor to go that hard for my estate, but at the same time, it's just despicable. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. From a legal perspective though, if we're talking purely legal, this raises ethical concerns. So as a lawyer, there are obviously rules of professional ethics that we must abide by. And so it's not just about whether something is lawful or not lawful. It's also about whether something is ethical in our behavior. So he's an attorney, so we also have to consider the ethics of his actions. Executors have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the estate and its beneficiaries, but they are also obligated to pay valid debts and judgments. So there really should be no reason why he's making these public comments and saying zero, nothing, if these are valid debts and judgments, which they are. It's literally a judgment from 2017. There was a court filing. So it's kind of crazy that he's making these bold statements. His public comments about denying the Goldmans any payout could actually open up the door to accusations of bad faith or obstruction. And that's really important because, like I said, executors have a fiduciary duty, and that is a pretty high level duty that you have. The Goldman's team is likely keeping a really close eye on all of his moves, all the shenanigans, all the things that he's doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are ethical concerns raised about him at the end of all of this or during all of this, because yeah, it just feels icky. It just really feels icky. Okay, another sip. This is crazy. This wine is delicious, by the way. I will put details in the comments. All right, back to the story. There's the children's involvement. Poor children who are now involved for no other reason but Simpson involving them. So Sydney and Justin are now caught in the crossfire of this legal storm. As primary beneficiaries to the estate, they stand to inherit whatever remains after the debts and the judgments are settled. That's typically how an estate is settled, right? However, if the court determines that they received fraudulent transfers during Simpson's lifetime, they could be forced to return those assets. Can you find out how old they are right now? They're probably Sydney, like his kids, Sydney and Justin. I wonder how old they are. But that is so unfortunate because they didn't ask to receive these assets. They didn't ask to receive, whatever transfers their father provided to them. And it just sucks. It would really be terrible if they're now like indebted. I don't know. Is it terrible? This is such a weird case. Like, I don't know how to feel about the people who are benefiting from this in a way.
Sydney's 39, Justin's 36.
Okay, so Sydney and I are about the same age if I was born in 85, which I wasn't. But yeah, anyways. This puts the children in a very difficult position. On one hand, they are defending their father's legacy. Ugh, my heart just breaks every time I think about it. On the other hand, they face a possibility of losing assets they may have believed were rightfully theirs. I want to believe they believed, and it's not a may. Like, they believed these assets were rightfully theirs. The family dynamics here, I'm sure, are complex and just undoubtedly fraught with a lot of tension. After all, they are also Nicole's children, and I can't even imagine what they have to navigate with their father being accused of having taken the life of their mother, and the dynamics between them and their grandparents on their mother's side. But anyways, this whole trial is proving to be a high-stakes chess game at this point. The estate battle is a masterclass in estate law complexities, for sure. Here are some of the key legal issues that are at play that are worth mentioning. So the first one is statute of limitations on fraudulent transfers. So let's talk about that a little bit. Courts will look at when the alleged transfers occurred and whether they fall within the legal window for recovery. So I'm not sure that's been determined or settled just yet. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then there's also the issue we talked about around asset valuation, the real estate properties that he may or may not own and the value of them. Determining the true value of his remaining assets is going to be a challenge just for a number of reasons. Discrepancies in valuation, those could lead to just prolonged litigation, but there are discrepancies in valuation based on a number of reasons, all of which I think this would just be a longer video if we went there. But yeah, when you get a property value, you get different quotes, or it could be based on a number of different things. The original value, the value at death. There's a number of different things that go into determining the value of the property when it's part of an estate, essentially. And then also there's the issue of priority of claims. So the court has to determine which creditor gets paid first. That always comes up when we're talking about settling an estate where there are creditors involved. You have to determine which creditor basically gets priority. And that process could also delay distribution to beneficiaries because you have to wait until all creditors are settled and then the beneficiaries get the remainder. And then there are the legal fees. Estate battles are expensive, and that's one of the reasons why I recommend transferring your estate via a trust and not via a will, because wills become public record, go through the probate process. Long story, contact me, we'll talk about it. But the longer this drags on, the more the estate's value diminishes due to mounting legal costs. So regardless of what the estate is valued at, the real estate property, the legal costs are just eating at it at this point. The broader implications at that right now are that this isn't just about O.J. Simpson anymore. The legal strategies employed in this case could really set precedents for future estate battles involving high-profile individuals, especially those with significant debts or judgments. For victims and their families in civil cases, it's a stark reminder, unfortunately, of how difficult, it's really difficult. It can be really difficult to collect damages even after a ruling. And it's sad, but it's just a reality. And it's the reality that the Goldman family and the Brown family are facing right now, because they got this settlement, what was it, in 1997? And how many years down the line are we right now and still unable to collect their damages? Not that the damages would even fix the loss or satisfy the loss that they must feel, but there just has to be some, level of, I just want some vindication. I just want a judgment that they're feeling right now. And I pray that for them, So where are they now? Let's wrap this up. As of today, the estate battle remains unresolved. It's still not yet resolved. The Goldmans continue to pursue their claim, while attorney Laverne and Simpson's beneficiaries fight to protect what they can. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess as his children, his beneficiaries, maybe there is a sense that they're entitled. Like, would they really walk away and not fight for it? I just don't even know how I would feel. It would just feel icky to me. I probably would walk away. Yeah, I probably would walk away. I don't know. But this could drag on for years. And it could become a case study in just the complexities of estate law and the enduring legacy of a man whose life was anything but ordinary. Far from it, in fact. O.J. Simpson's life is a cautionary tale, though. It's a Shakespearean tragedy, like I said earlier. It's wrapped in a soap opera like General Hospital, and it has a little side of true crime. So, just a lot going on. You don't know where to start or where to end. Even after his death, there's still a lot going on. But from his rise as a football legend to his infamous fall from grace, his story is one that continues to captivate and divide at the same time, rightfully so. It's a reminder, though, of I guess more than a reminder, I think it's a cautionary tale of how fame and fortune could really just amplify both the best and the worst in a person. I mean, even this story, the show that I was watching about the other football player, do you remember what I'm talking about? It's now showing Aaron Hernandez. Same thing. Like, fame really amplifies who we are as people. So if you're just not a good person in the core, no judgment to Aaron Hernandez. I'm just saying, like, if you're not a good person at the core, fame will amplify whatever it is that you are. So, be a good person if you want to be famous, I guess, is my I don't know. This has been exhausting, truly exhausting, this story. But I hope you gained something from this. And until next time, my friends, remember, every legacy tells a story. Make yours worth writing.